Coming up next, this is a little unconventional, but we're going to shine focus on the neurological condition known as stuttering. I used to actually struggle with it as a kid. Some spent a lifetime trying to get rid of it. Others have learned to control it and become legendary performers. And some have turned that condition into some of the biggest hits in rock history. In this episode, we explore how a stutter was turned into a clever art form, uniting a universal chorus of stammer that was truly beautiful, including the song that a singer was writing when his toddler started singing along with him. The simple lyrics were like a nursery rhyme, and they stuttered it together, and that stutter by his toddler made it a classic. Then there's a stutter that came from frustration when a legendary singer couldn't get the timing of the vocal and the lyrics right, so he had to stutter to make it fit. It became an all-time anthem. And then there's the band that wrote a song to mock their little brother's speech impediment, and it hit #1 in 12 countries, and he even got a special award from the nonprofit Stuttering Foundation for it. Let's do it. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Make sure to subscribe below right now to be a part of our community and check the notification bell so you know when our stuff comes out the day it comes out.
Did I stutter?
Man, we've got to get into this countdown, and we've got some legendary guests here to help us with this. Now, the condition known as stuttering is a natural variation in how we speak. It happens when the flow of words gets interrupted by repetitions, stretched sounds, or blocks where the mouth gets momentarily stuck. It can feel like a hiccup in the talking process, often with physical tension or frustration, even though the person knows exactly what they want to say, just can't get their mouth to cooperate. Like I said, I struggled with it as a kid. My youngest son struggled with when he was growing up and learning to speak as well. It's a neurological difference, not a sign of nervousness. Some very famous people have also stuttered, and showing that it doesn't hold you back from extraordinary success.
Over the River Clyde, a whole town.
Actors like Samuel L. Jackson, James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, Emily Blunt and Bruce Willis, to name a few. Superstar musicians like Ed Sheeran, Elvis Presley, and B.B. King, and public figures like President Thomas Jefferson, President Gerald Ford, and President Joe Biden. And in the world of rock and roll, the stutter is turned into an art form, with some of the most popular sing-along songs of all time being sung with a stutter. And this is our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs of the rock era. Starting in at number 10, I've got a true classic here, Lola by the Kinks. You know, the real hook of this rock classic is how the stutter functions as a storytelling tool in the song. When the narrator first meets Lola and then realizes the anatomy beneath the disguise, the words stumble. Well, I'm not the world's most masculine man, but I know what I am, and I'm glad I'm a man, and so is Lola. That moment is mirrored in the music, with Lola's name being sung in a stuttering staccato rhythm, la 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 Lola, right? Which captures the stunned confusion of trying to process a shocking curveball and put into words. Now, the Kinks frontman Ray Davies didn't use the stutter by accident. Unlike the nervous stammer you hear in other songs like My Generation by The Who, this one was a deliberate artistic choice to heighten the humor and the storytelling. It adds a touch of charming dissonance, a catchy sing-along hitch, and the narrator's voice that mirrors the surprise of the actual situation. Now, Ray's toddler daughter, Victoria, was present while he was writing Lola and smiled and sang along when her father sang the chorus with the stuttered L. In fact, some versions of this story that I've read and heard, his little daughter was the one who accidentally stuttered it in the first place, and it just stuck. Anyway, little Victoria's reaction to the song convinced him that he had a serious hit on his hand, something with real potential. When a toddler loves and sings a song like that, you know it's going to be big. You know about the BBC censorship of Lola? The BBC briefly banned the song from the airwaves, not for the provocative subject matter, mind you, but because of a strict rule against product placement. Ray Davies had to tweak a line, changing it from "tastes like Coca-Cola" to "cherry cola" to get airplay.
Tastes like Coca-Cola, C-O-L-A-Cola.
Hey, even a clever stutter can get tangled up in the rules of broadcasting, I guess. Lola climbed to number 2 in the UK and Canada and went to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 here in 1970. All All right, coming in at number 9 on our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs, I got the Logical Song by Supertramp.
Logical, oh, responsible, practical.
You know, that famous the digital stutter at the end of the Logical Song didn't start as a grand plan at all. It was a happy accident during the Breakfast in America sessions. In the studio, the engineer, Richard Digby Smith, was messing around with the small handheld Mattel electronic football game. Any child of the 80s or 70s knows that one. And, you know, the machine kept bleeping away in the next room, a quirky repeat fire sound that caught everyone's ear. Everybody knows this sound if you grew up in that time. The band and the crew were captivated by the sound effect of the game, and they had an inventive idea. Why not drop that sound into the track? Supertramp's co-lead singer Roger Hodgson later recalled how it all went down. We figured, let's put that sound on it and see what happens. It clicked beautifully, adding a fresh experimental edge that we hadn't planned. The beats were woven into the song as a futuristic digital moment before, really, we were in a digitally dominated world. Roger added the stutter of the word digital with a stammering D at the song's coda in the fade out. It's a really cool artistic touch there. Now, the Logical Song earned Roger Hodgson a Novello Award for being named the best song both musically and lyrically. This was a number 7 single in the UK and number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1979. All right, our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs continues with Too Much Time on My Hands by Styx, coming in at number 8. The stuttering vocal in Styx's Too Much Time on My Hands, of course sung by Tommy Shaw, isn't about a speech issue. It's meant to convey that frantic, repetitive feel of being bored and stuck in a loop. The whole idea of wasting time on ordinary stuff like hanging out at a local bar. Shaw had that rhythm in his head. Of course, that gave the track a bit of a new age edge. And the way the lyrics stutter, it mirrors those endless days when there's nothing to do, being bored. Tommy came up with that innovative intro and the lyrical stutter while he was driving to rehearsal, actually, catching both the rhythm and the idea at really the same time. The song paints a scene of someone with too much time on their hands at a local bar, like I said. The bar was Mark's Tavern in Niles, Michigan, where cheap drinks turn into buying rounds and you end up stuck in a routine, perfectly echoed by that rhythmic stutter. And while some listeners might hear it as a speech issue, it's really a stylistic choice, really meant to convey the feeling of being trapped in a dull, repetitive rut with time ticking away. Tommy told me about this recently in an interview session I did with him.
Something got in my head, and I started hearing, might have been the lumps on the bridge or whatever. And I finally got, so got it, pulled into the parking lot, pulled around back, and the back door to the rehearsal hall was open. I ran in there and I go, hey, guys, come here. Chuck, play this. So Chuck's playing that, and the rest of the guys they're such good writers. They started playing. By the time I got there, I went inside. It was 10 minutes at the most, and we had the song.
Too Much Time on My Hands by Styx was the second single release from their Paradise Theater album. It was a hit for the band from Chicago, rising to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and going to number 4 in Canada. Not only did Tommy Shaw sing the lead on the track, he also played that really great guitar solo. All right, our next track on the top 10 stuttering songs. Man, this one was Halley's Comet by an LA trio named the Knack. At number 7, I got My Sharona. All right. Let's talk about where the stutter came from. Can you imagine being the object of a song that became the hottest single on the planet for a long time? Well, that's what happened to 17-year-old Sharona Alperine. She was just doing her job, working at a clothing store in LA, when Doug Fieger, the lead singer of a relatively unknown band called the Knack, saw her and fell head over heels in a split second. Sharona captivated Fieger, and his infatuation compelled him to write My Sharona straight away. Now, we talked about this, but I want to give you a different take. It was well before he won her over, and then they became a couple. The lyrics are written from the perspective of an adolescent obsession, and he put the stutter in purposefully, acting like a breathless cue for Doug's wild desire. Now, the chorus of My Sharona is instantly infectious with a stutter because Doug was expressing a breathless, almost puppy love teenage level attraction that he had for Sharona. That little my Sharona, it's actually used as the device to mirror Doug's eager, racing emotions, an uncontrollable crush that's just bursting to come out. Hey, we've all felt it at one time or another for someone. Now, some critics have even drawn a line to Roger Daltrey's phrasing in the Who's My Generation. There have even been mentions of drug-era speech patterns shaping the delivery, since cocaine use was so prevalent back in the late 70s. Though I think that's a little over the top and not at all what he was probably thinking, but anyway, the stuttering in My Sharona, described at times as staccato vocals, that creates a tension that bursts into the catchy chorus, giving the track its frenetic energy that's on the verge of becoming unhinged at the same time. Really added an urgency to the song there. It also echoes that era's vocal tendencies that critics have pointed to, adding a layer of interpretive texture. In the end, the stutter helped drive home the song's core expression, an all-consuming, almost reckless attraction to another person, right? The world, though, is fascinated by My Sharona. The single rocketed to #1 in so many countries, held the position on the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 straight weeks. It sold more copies than any other single since the Beatles released I Want to Hold Your Hand, which of course is why they were called the second coming of the Beatles. As of 2025, My Sharona has sold over 11 million copies. I want to mention our sponsor. Every new year starts the same. Big goals and even bigger challenges. Me, I'm actually giving up sugar. I have for a few weeks. I'm going to try to sleep more than 4 hours at night, and I'm definitely going to buy more vinyl. Here's the thing, though. Some goals, you can't do them alone. You need the right people. And when you're hiring for your team, finding those unicorns that can shred at their job like Slash on a solo, you need ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try it free at ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's smart matching tech is like a producer who knows exactly who should be laying down the track. It finds the best candidates and fast. Want to know how many candidates are in your area? You can. Need to contact top talent instantly? You got it. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site on G2. It's the rock star of recruiting. Let ZipRecruiter help you find the best people for all your roles. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Just go to this exclusive web address right now. Try ZipRecruiter for free. ZipRecruiter.com/rock. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/rock. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Onward with our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs. I got Elton John busting in with Benny and the Jets at number 6. It's hard to imagine Benny and the Jets without the stuttering B, but it was never intended to include that iconic effect. Elton had no intention of the song coming out with this stuttering chorus. When he initially unleashed the stutter, he was just goofing around. Supposed to be nothing more than a warm-up to the real recording session, that became the track. And Bernie Taupin wrote Benny and the Jets about a provocative, futuristic band that fascinated the teeny boppers longing to break out of a confining culture back in the day. On paper, it was another brilliant composition by Bernie. But it was Elton's interpretation that really brought the song to life, even if Elton's performance was actually one of those moments of improv magic. While Elton warmed up his vocals for the recording, he playfully stuttered the B on Benny, kind of making fun of the ultra-modern image of the band, that fictitious band that Bernie wrote about, I was talking about. This is the kind of story that I really love, though. Much to Elton's initial chagrin, Gus Dudgeon, the producer of the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album, he loved the stuttering version of Benny, and he told Elton that they should put it on the record that way. Benny and the Jets. Gus knew that version was a surefire hit. Elton, on the other hand, he thought it was too strange, and he really pushed back. He didn't hear it. Ultimately, Gus had enough juice with Elton, though, and he rolled with his producer's instinct. And of course, Gus was right. Benny and the Jets was a smash, flying the #1 in Canada and on the Billboard Hot 174. In Elton's native UK, the song wasn't in the plan to be a featured single from Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and was relegated to being the B-side to Candle in the Wind.
You lived your life like a candle in the wind.
And of course, Benny and the Jets, with his beloved stutter, has become one of Elton's signature tunes.
Benny and the Jets.
All right, rolling on with our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs. It's an arrival into the danger of the concrete jungle by Guns N' Roses with Welcome to the Jungle at number 5. GNR's landmark album, Appetite for Destruction, oh man, it gripped a generation of rock fans in America like no collection of songs had ever done before. Maybe since Boston's debut album. The impact became historic as GNR set a record for the biggest selling debut album in recorded music history, moving over 18 million copies in the US alone, and surpassing the same album I just mentioned, Boston's debut album. There were many elements that made Appetite for Destruction a powerful album. The jagged guitar riffs, pounding rhythm, really the intensity of the vocal outbursts that were stunning to our senses. It made rock and roll sound dangerous again in the middle of polite pop radio that was taken over FM. But another element that the band incorporated that added to the intensity of the album was the stuttering effect on Welcome to the Jungle. The stuttering on Welcome to the Jungle has nothing to do with a simulated speech impediment. It's really a masterful nuance to storytelling that puts you right in the headspace of someone overwhelmed by a strange new world. Hollywood, California back then. In the band's own words and in interviews from members like Izzy Stradlin, the city's energy comes across as relentless and truly nerve-wracking. The soul-sucking pull of the LA streets that can truly wear anyone down. That uneasy atmosphere is exactly what helps the song land as both dangerous and compelling. You know, like you're stepping into a world where you have to hustle just to survive. The stutter makes it even more dramatic, projecting the feeling of adapting and fighting and hustling when you're up against a chaotic city that can chew you up and spit you out, like it can still do that. Axl delivered the stuttering effect as to imitate the speech pattern of someone who is heavily under the influence of speed, amphetamines, or other drugs, which was a subtle reference to the ever-present drug use in the LA rock scene that the song describes. That one's not over the top. He actually tried to do that. But as iconic as the song and the music video are, and really are, it really took a lot of time to ignite because MTV simply wouldn't play it. They refused to. The suits of the network were afraid of GNR's loud and rebellious album due to its lyrics and its adult content. I mean, back then, the once glorious music channel was controlled by a no-nonsense businessman named John Malone because half of the network's cable outlets were owned by him. And he warned MTV that if they played any dangerous junkie bands, he was going to drop the channel from all of his cable affiliates at a moment's notice. At that point, Appetite had been out for like 10 months and only sold a few 100,000 copies. It was deemed a failure, and GNR was being pushed to move on to their next album. You believe that? This was despite the efforts of David Geffen's promotional team. I don't think people realize Appetite was very close to being a total flop. And again, even the power of David Geffen couldn't change this. Nobody could get this song or even the album played. So Geffen's CEO, Ed Rosenblatt, he called Tom Zutaut, the man who had signed Guns N' Roses. He called him into his office and he told him, hey, it's over. You should start thinking about the band's next album. But Tom dug in and he put his career on the line right then and there. He went over Rosenblatt's head and he begged David Geffen to call in a favor to MTV. So against his better judgment, David Geffen actually did call MTV's main man, Tom Freston, and he asked him, hey, Tom, will you please lift the ban on this rookie band? The CEO, he agreed to play the video for Welcome to the Jungle, but get this, it was a one-time only exception. Welcome to the Jungle had just one shot. It's going to be in the early morning. In fact, it was the worst possible time slot ever offered to a music video. 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning. When David Geffen told Tom the news, the A&R man was devastated, but he accepted it. That was it. Appetite was over. So Zutaut stayed up all night with the band to watch the video and celebrate their 5 minutes of fame. But a funny thing happened. That one and only early morning showing of Welcome to the Jungle made Guns N' Roses bigger than sliced bread. After the video aired, viewers bombarded MTV with calls demanding repeat plays, tied up their switchboard in the process for days. The next day, phones were ringing off the hook at the record company as well. When Tom Zutaut came into work, he was shocked to discover that his Hail Mary was a winner. Guns N' Roses had made it. Within days, Welcome to the Jungle was MTV's #1 most requested video and would remain that for months. In the process, it took Appetite to a global album, sold 1 million overnight and millions for months on end. For its part, Jungle ended up going to number 14 in Ireland, number 13 in Finland, number 24 in the UK, number 6 in New Zealand, and number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. Ultimately, the single sold over 3 million units in the US. Our top 10 stuttering song rolls on right now with Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood and the Destroyers at number 4.
Bad to the bone. Bad.
You know, George Thorogood came up with Bad to the Bone after watching the over-the-top crowd reaction to the Rolling Stones performing Start Me Up. He was opening for the Stones on that tour, and the experience left him thinking about capturing a riff that instantly sticks. You know, something as recognizable as Keith Richards' hook in Start Me Up. That's what he was going for. What really struck him was that the audience went crazy after the first lick of the song. They knew exactly what it was. And then the band purposefully kept the audience hanging before continuing to play the track. Kind of like what Skinner used to do with Sweet Home Alabama, right? George was also inspired by blues greats, though, like Muddy Waters, especially Manish Boy, and, of course, Bo Diddley.
Now, when I was a young boy,
On the day I was born.
He eventually settled on the title, recalling a conversation with a guy from the tough streets of Wilmington, Delaware. This is where he grew up. George set out to write a blues rock influence anthem about a guy with a tough, badass attitude, and that's exactly what he did. Now, George was not planning to stammer the B's on Bad, but you know, the more he performed it, the more he thought about it. He thought that stuttering could make the narrator sound a lot tougher, and a stutter would reinforce the swaggering spirit of the song. Bad. The idiom to the bone, that goes back centuries, but there's no question that George popularized the phrase bad to the bone with his signature song that took him months to write, actually, because he wanted to get it just right. George and the Destroyers didn't have an immediate hit with Bad to the Bone, though. It was a slow build and ultimately became bigger as the title and the riff of the song were absorbed by pop culture. Of course, it became the #1 ringtone of all time for a long time.
Bad to the bone.
Now, it didn't make the Billboard Hot 100, but it did peak at number 27 on the mainstream rock chart in '82. Here's George's 2 cents on it.
In 1964 and 65, Roger Daltrey did his Stutter.
Trying to cause a big sensation.
Then there was a band in the 70s, but baby, ain't got nothing yet.
Bachman, Turner Overdrive, yep.
So I said every 10 years, it's wide open to do something like that. Actually, I got a great review. A guy wrote a review. I don't know who you meant. He said, the greatest stutter since my generation. I went, damn, I'm in. You can't beat that, you know. But that was intentional.
All right, number 3 on our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs is the often cited My Generation by The Who.
Just talking about my generation.
Ironically, the stuttering F on My Generation became very influential for future rock vocalists. Now, Roger Daltrey was born with a stutter that he learned to control over time, though it still surfaces under pressure. That real-life stammer added an intriguing subplot to his vocal performance on My Generation. Both Pete Townsend and Daltrey were influenced by blues artists like Sonny Boy Williamson Jr., who also used stuttering in his songs.
Don't mention to no one else.
Okay, so during the recording, Roger Daltrey was trying to keep up with the fast tempo, and he couldn't quite get the words out smoothly on the line, "Why don't you all fade away?" He was getting really pissed. He became visibly and audibly frustrated. In fact, the rumor is that the song was originally recorded as another F word that he said. They knew it wouldn't get played, though.
Why don't you all fade away?
Producer Kit Lambert, he heard Roger's exasperated stutter in his anger, and he urged him to keep it, suggesting it sounded like a mod on speed. He thought it fit the song's rebellious edge perfectly. Roger recalled that Kit came up to him and said, "Stutter!" And Roger thought, "Okay, what?" "Stutter the words, Roger." That's what he said. So Roger continued that now iconic delivery.
Why don't you all fade away?
The stutter on "Why Don't Y'all Fade Away," it gave the line a controversial, almost expletive edge that worried the media at first. The BBC initially banned the track, believing it would offend people who stutter. Of course, that's a bit ironic since Roger himself had a stutter.
Dig what we all say.
To the listener, it sounds like he's about to drop the F-bomb, like I said, for the first time in popular music history, till he finishes with, "Fade Away." Still, he nudged the audience to fill in the blanks as he skillfully dodged the censors. Despite the initial censorship, pirate radio stations championed the song, and its growing popularity eventually forced the BBC to lift the ban as it became a huge hit in the UK, landing at number 2. It was also a number 2 single in Australia and number 3 in Canada in 1966. Surprisingly, it did not chart in the US. All right, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs, and next up, I've got David Bowie. Cannot believe it's been 10 years since he passed. I've got Bowie with the song that broke just before he transitioned to his Ziggy Stardust character, "Changes," at number 2. David Bowie confided that "Changes" was a parody of a nightclub song. Kind of a throwaway is what he said. But people kept chanting for it at concerts, and thus it became one of his most popular and enduring songs. David believed the "Changes" stutter on the chorus added to the compulsive, fascinating nature of reinvention. It was central to the meaning of the song. David Bowie wrote the song during a period of big personal change. It was art really imitating life. His wife Angela was pregnant with their first child, Duncan, and Bowie was feeling great about becoming a father. And that sense of optimism, it comes through in "Changes." Bowie said he didn't expect the song to be so successful, but the song really resonated with his younger audience, especially with lines like, "These children that you spit on as they try to change their worlds are immune to your consultations. They're quite aware of what they're going through."
What they're going through. Changes.
That's a line that actually opens the classic film The Breakfast Club, right? From a chart perspective, a lot of people would be surprised. "Changes," it wasn't a hit single. It was one of those that's gotten more popular over time, with all the changes that have happened since it came out in 72. Sorry, bad joke there. The song stalled at number 66 on the Billboard Hot 100. That's what it got up to, although it flopped in the UK at its first run. "Changes" had a resurgence in the UK in 2016. It peaked at number 49 there. All right, we're at number 1 on our countdown of the top 10 stuttering songs, and I gotta go with the obvious choice here. Bachman Turner Overdrive with "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet." Actually, it's Bachman Turner Overdrive, but most people say it is Bachman Turner Overdrive, and I've talked to Randy about it, and he said, yeah, of course, it's Randy Bachman. Most people say Randy Bachman. It's fine. Here, I'm going to say it right, though. During the recording session for the Not Fragile album, Randy Bachman was screwing around with microphones, and as he changed the mics, he sang the lyrics to a song they were working on called "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet." He did it with a stutter, and he did this to make fun of his brother Gary's prominent speech impediment in the process. You could definitely accuse Randy of being mean to his brother, like we all have been when we have brothers. But he contends he was just teasing, and Gary was also in the studio, and he wasn't mad at him for doing it. I mean, Randy and Gary, they had a very close relationship. They were blood brothers. Not only did Gary have a stutter at an early age, though, he also had Peart's disease when he was a child. The condition that came with the hip and leg issues requiring Gary to wear a shoe lift and a brace. Now, it was Randy's job to look out for his little brother. And Randy's teasing stutter was it's just a spur of the moment thing. The lyrics to "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet" themselves, including the famous line about a doctor and getting a cure, those were also improvised and not meant to be taken seriously. He was just having a good time. That line, though, fueled later rumors that the song was about herpes or some other disease. Randy always insisted the song had nothing to do with an STD. Crazy stuff that comes out of this. Randy's stuttering on the demo of You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet started as a private joke for Gary, of course. There was no expectation to it. No expectation it become a real song. No one beyond Gary and the band was ever meant to hear it. However, that all changed when Mercury Records A&R man Charlie Fuchs didn't hear a clear hit in the 8-track batch that the band had presented to him. He asked if the band had anything else. In reality, they didn't have anything else, except for the demo of You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet that they were messing around with. So the band went back to Randy and asked him about giving the work track with a stutter to Fuchs to listen to because they were kind of desperate. Randy thought they were just kidding, though, but he soon realized they weren't. Even with the prodding from his bandmates, Randy was really reluctant to submit it for the label's review. He even tried redoing the vocals straight, but when he sang it without that stutter, he kind of sounded like Frank Sinatra, which wasn't a good thing for the song. Randy finally relented and he submitted the stuttering versions, what they had recorded before. He also did the straight version, sent them to him, and Charlie Fuchs listened to it. And to his astonishment, he loved the stuttering version, saying it was exactly the track that the album was missing.
Here's something you never could forget, baby.
But even though he loved it, Randy was still not on board. But you know, what could he do? He didn't have anything else they needed a hit. And if the A&R man was right, the stuttering song would be that hit. And you know what? It was indeed a smash, huge smash. It stammered its way to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 12 other countries in 1974, just like Fuchs believed it would.
You never forget, baby, you ain't seen nothing yet.
I mean, think about it. Without the stutter, BTO probably would not have had a number 1 single. I wonder if Randy and the band ever paid Gary some royalties for the inspiration there. I should have asked Randy when I interviewed him. All right, we're going to hear from Randy, one of the best storytellers out there. But first, in the biggest twist of this countdown, Jane Fraser, president of the Stuttering Foundation, gave Randy Bachman an award for the greatest stuttering song ever. She said, and I quote, "Not only was You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet the first song with stuttering vocals to reach number 1, but more importantly, it was the first such song that was actually about a real person who stutters and therefore has a human connection to the struggles faced by someone who stutters." So Randy writes a song to tease his brother about his stutter and then gets honored for this by the Stuttering Foundation. You can't make this stuff up. Here's what Randy said.
So to lead the song, I start to sing nonsensically about a woman who took my heart away, and I start to stutter to tease my brother as just a brother-to-brother joke. And up comes the thing, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. I don't know where that came from.
Baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. Here's something that
The song is left off the album. I mixed one version on a cassette. The guy who heard Taking Care of Business and said, yeah, leave the piano in. BTO with the piano is great. You're going to be singing this song, by the way, every day for the rest of your life. Are you going to love this song? And he said, you're going to love You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. Put it on the album.
Sometimes it's a novelty that makes a song preeminent, right? And that's what all 10 of these songs have on this countdown. It's what they all have in common. A novelty of a very human condition that we celebrate called stuttering. Leave us a comment about these songs. What are your memories of these songs? What is your favorite stuttering song? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.